back to Showcase Minnesota. Our next guest has captured some of the most inspiring stories in the world of baseball. In Before the Glory, 20 baseball heroes talk about growing up and turning hard times into home runs indeed. And we're pleased to welcome author Billy Staples to our show this morning. Billy, it's great to have you. A fantastic book. And I've got to tell you, and like I told you back in the green room, I spent almost 15 years as a sports reporter, and I could never get athletes to open up like you did in this book. It is fantastic. The stories are riveting. They're some of them gut-wrenching, and just well done. Great job.
And I say to you, you did your job fine and great and well, I'm sure, but I didn't
Some would disagree, but
but I didn't approach it as a sports writer or a sports reporter. When I did all those interviews, I was a school teacher who used to spend a lot of time as a child in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
So I was saying the responsibility of the interview was to all the kids that are going to read it. So I'm not worried about tomorrow's paper or this magazine. I said, I need you to be truthful to the kids that might get something out of your
It's really the cycle of the whole romantic thing of baseball. You were the wide-eyed kid in the locker. I think we have a couple of pictures of you with some baseball immortals here and basketball. You grew up in, was it near Philly?
Yep, that's Tug McGraw. And Tugger was, you know, we lost him too early, but
it's Tim McGraw's father.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and he was just an easygoing, happy-go-lucky guy. Great sense of humor.
Wow.
And same birthday as me, Hall of Fame catcher, Roy Campanella, who played right alongside of Jackie Robinson. And I was in awe of him.
And you got the Denny Terrio going there.
Look at that collar.
This is about 78.
Yeah, you're right on the money.
Oh,
the Yogi. Now, that's 25 years ago, but Yogi still looks the same.
He does look the same. Fantastic. Now, where did you grow up exactly? Oh, there's Mickey Mantle.
Yep, that's my first locker room I was ever in. That's 1974. And it was an old-timers day.
Now, how did you get to meet all these players?
That's the odd thing. How all this started was I was a fan, and I went up to Joe DiMaggio on old-timers day as he was walking into the stadium, asked him for his signature, and he said, no problem, but just follow me, kid. And then instead of following alongside him, I followed behind him in the press area.
You're kidding.
I swear to you, around the stadium, into the locker room, and then he sat down in the locker room, and then I'm there, and he goes, oh, and he signed it. I was not about
you weren't supposed to be there.
Come on.
Let's talk about the book.
Sure.
I mean, these baseball stories and locker room stories I could talk all day about. Some of the stories in here. Let's talk about Bill Mazeroski. I mean,
what's interesting, we're in a life. It's 2007. Your listeners, right? Material possessions, your work, your debt. The guys that were just here, right, on your show.
Right.
And Maz grew up in a double wide, and America's going to react to the words double wide.
Right.
But not double-wide trailer. He grew up living in a double-wide chicken coop, without exaggeration. But that's what was expected in this area of the country, along the riverbanks, in the late 1940s, early 1950s, without any complaints. And he finally got electricity at about 15 years old, and that was one wire to a light bulb.
That's amazing.
To do anything.
And you talk about overcoming odds to get to somewhere and to get to the major leagues are fantastic. Other stories, Ron LaFleur, we know the Ron LaFleur story,
Sure.
the Detroit Tiger that overcame the drug problems. And Ferguson Jenkins is an interesting story in the book.
Fergie is a kid that's growing up in Canada. His mom is blind and he's an only child. And he loved hockey. Loved playing for the people out here in Minnesota. That was what he wanted to be. He wanted to be a hockey player. And so as he was getting older, he's getting banged around. And he came home one day and his mom sat him down and said, Fergie, the only two things on that ice that are black are you and the puck, and you're getting beat up. And she goes, you got a good arm. Let's put some more time into the pitching. I'm worried about my son. And he took her seriously, and he started to put more time into baseball.
Right.
True story.
Our own hometown hero, Justin Morneau, is in the book.
I love him.
And Justin Morneau overcame the divorce of his parents.
You know, Justin had that brother, so the brothers are playing ball, and they're busy, and Justin was always hitting. Even in study hall in high school was hitting. And Justin's a class act. A quiet guy, but he's a class act. And we all go through in our society things, and divorce hit him.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter how tough you are, how strong you are, how big you are. It was hard for him to get over and work through mom and dad splitting up, and that was one of his toughest hurdles.
How did you get him to open up and talk to you, a complete stranger, about something so personal?
Because this is your business, Rob, and it's a good question. Because before you do the interview, just what you did with me, You sat down, you relaxed, you talked to yourself before we were in the green room, and you start to build rapport. And if you can't see in someone's facial expressions genuineness and honesty, and I started showing him pictures of my students, and then I showed him other chapters which he'd already gotten, and I said, do we want to just fluff this? Or I said, are you comfortable, you know, really answering
This is not a fluff book. I mean, there is some very touching, I mean, it's real. I mean, what comes off the pages is real. You know, real people.
It's written in their words.
Yes, absolutely.
Not my words.
And you know, you see them on the field, and they're big stars and everything, but underneath the uniform, they're real people, and they have parents, and you know, sometimes they seem bigger than life. Whitey Ford, an interesting story in the book.
I didn't even know. I met him 20 times before I did the book because of growing up around the locker room and being able to get back in many times after that. Until I went down to Florida with my co-author, Rich Hirschlag. The two of us are sitting there. I didn't realize that Whitey was an only child. And so he started to explain that it was him, mom, and dad, but then things happened with the war. He grew up in New York City, and then now living with his uncles. And so families had to take 2 or 3 spots where they're living and get together. And when Whitey wanted to play baseball, it was under the 59th Street Bridge.
Oh, wow.
Simon and Garfunkel, Feeling Groovy.
Feeling Groovy.
And they had to pick out the pieces of glass from the winos the night before, always breaking bottles on the field.
Right.
But that's the way it was. So the first thing Whitey did before he even got warmed up was go out into that field and pick out pieces of glass.
It's amazing. And the book, folks, is full of stories like that. Thank you so much, Billy.
Well,
come back again. Come back again. You know, when the Twins are in the series this fall.
I said it to you.
With Justin. Yes, you did. Yeah. Yes, you did. So that, you're a lucky charm. You could find Before the Glory in bookstores everywhere. Great stuff.